Just want to take a moment to recognize our platinum sponsor here today, Amazon Care. And here to introduce your keynote speaker from Amazon Care is Ashley Holmes. Put your hands together for Ashley, everyone.
My name's Ashley Holmes. I am with Amazon Care. I'm your local Baltimore, Washington representative. We're really excited to be here participating in your event in Baltimore this morning and to have the opportunity to talk to HR leaders so you can get to know a little bit more about us, we can learn more about you, and talk about how we can improve your employees' healthcare experiences together. In fact, Amazon Care is committed to doing just that through our easy and convenient on-demand model for accessing health care. Basically, we're bringing the doctor's office to your employees. Through our mobile care app, employees can connect with a nurse or doctor by video visit within minutes, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's wherever they are. So whether they are at home, whether they're at the office, whether they're in a grocery store parking lot, they can actually talk to a healthcare provider either in person or virtually. So our on-demand providers address many of the primary care needs that you would normally receive through traditional brick-and-mortar medicine. Like allergies, cold, flu, COVID-19 symptoms, eye and ear infections, rashes, all that fun stuff that we like talking about first thing in the morning. They also provide urgent care, so sometimes it can help prevent costly and time-consuming trips to the ER. Injuries, minor burns, insect stings. I'm not going to read the entire list of ailments up here this morning, but sometimes we know a video visit just isn't going to cut it. So if they needed, then we'll send a nurse right to their actual door. So like I said before, whether at home or whether they're at the office, we can dispatch a mobile care nurse to provide care to them exactly where they are. So in addition to primary and urgent care, we provide ongoing treatment and follow-ups for chronic conditions. We work to prevent the chronic conditions to increase the health, happiness, and well-being of your workforce. And we recently launched an amazing partnership with a behavioral health services partner, and that's Ginger. So we know that 1 in 5 adults in the US suffers from a mental health condition at one point in time. So we know that the need for a mental and behavioral health solution is even greater today than it has been in the past. And Amazon Care will bring that directly to you. We also give employees a designated team with care coordinators. So they handle in-network referrals. They can do appointment scheduling, record keeping, follow-ups, and make Amazon Care a convenient all-in-one resource for accessing healthcare quickly and easily. Thought I would have a podium up here, so I apologize. So please come visit us at our table so we can talk to you a little bit more about your business and what your needs are and how we could directly work together to positively impact the health of your employees. And now, this is actually why I'm here, and I'm so excited to introduce today's keynote speaker. So Scott Lesnick is a global leadership keynote speaker. He's an author and a trainer. He has 2 books, Kid Jacked, A Father's Story, and Life Jacked, Life Lessons on Leadership, and they're recently published to critical acclaim. Scott recently received his CSP, a Certified Speaking Professional designation, of which there are less than 700 recipients worldwide. Plus, he has run over 50,000 miles. I mean, I have my Fitbit on today, but I am not going to be able to touch that. That's twice around the planet. So please welcome author, TEDx speaker, and above-average miniature golfer.
True.
Scott
True.
Lesnick.
True. Thanks, Ashley. Don't need that. I got that. So you can talk, like you can rate me while I'm speaking. You can go, no, come on. Wow, cool. Thank you for that. CHRA. Good morning. It's great to be here. I speak at a lot of SHRM events and other events in corporate, but HR is family to me. I'm going to explain that a little bit later in this presentation, but it is so good to be back in person, isn't it? Get to spend some time, network, hug some people you haven't seen. If you're a hugger, I'm a hugger, and it's just great. I'm going to take you on a little journey today. Keep these out. I know you have them anyway. I know you're busy. You're in HR, so you're probably returning some emails, putting out some fires, and doing some things. That's great. I'm going to give these slides to you, a copy of this book, Kids You Act a Father Story, in PDF later on via text. So some cool stuff. Anyway, let's get going. What would you do if you woke up one morning and just rolled out of bed, minding your own business, and those most precious to you in the whole world were gone? Freak out. Maybe frantically phone a few friends or freak out some more. That's what I did. These were my kids, Jonathan and Alexandra. He was 5 years old and Allie was 3 years old. Now, Jonathan, the king of questions. Daddy, why doesn't the moon fall down and squish us? Daddy, how come there's so many pieces of sand here? And my favorite, and I'm sure he got this one from me, Daddy, can I have just one more piece of candy, please? And Allie, fearless, the queen of climbing. We would sit on our couch and she'd climb up onto my back and my shoulders and on top of my head and go up, up, up. These two little kids were kidnapped and taken to the Middle East by the person I trusted most, their mother, my wife Lisa. There was no warning, there was no note, and there were no kids. Oh, and check this out. When this tragic event in my life occurred, I quickly found out that there were no signed international laws requiring my wife to return our kids back home. No signed international laws, I thought to myself. I never ever figured that those 4 words would cross my path in a million years. I was devastated. Now, I realize that you have probably never had your children kidnapped and taken to a Middle Eastern country. I get that. But I'm willing to bet you that something has happened to you or someone you know that's made you feel the same way. What is it that you have had to survive besides the last 2 years? It could be the death of a loved one, or a relationship that was once close but isn't anymore. Maybe you received a diagnosis from a doctor that you really didn't want to get, and then because you had Amazon Care, things were better. Listen, I want to let you know, because this is going to be about an hour-long keynote, this ends well, okay? So sit back, relax, breathe, and enjoy the ride. It ends well. I'm just going to take you on a journey and give you a lot of stories. In some ways, I barely kept my act together because, folks, I was a mess. This was so far out of my league and my particular skill sets. Did not include ways of dealing with this type of situation. And I was really, really, really angry. Don't get me wrong. I knew I'd have to come up with some way to rescue my kids, even if it meant deceiving Lisa, my wife, and her family. But my immediate problem, besides my kids being half a world away, was that my stress level was way up here, as you can imagine. And I had to come up with some ways to bring it down to manageable levels. And I started to think about ways to do this. And then I thought about my life and how this connects all of us. And I thought, well, I got to keep it together because of my kids. This is the biggest thing I've ever had to deal with, and I'm sure it's the biggest thing I'll ever have to deal with. So I had to keep it together. But it's interesting. Sometimes when we're going through major challenges in our life, professionally or personally, and there's stress involved, certain things happen to us when we have to face those situations. We know, right? We don't eat as well. We don't sleep as well. And if you're into exercising, that probably goes down instead of going up at a time you could really use it. Now, if you've ever been that stressed out in your life, or you know somebody who has been, just say yes. Should be all of us. People on, yeah, I think even out there, the 100 or more that are watching, I heard a few yeses. This is good. So what do you do? Because I had no idea how I was going to get the kids back and how I was going to keep my act together. So things began to happen by accident, organically. Somewhere, somehow, things began to happen my way. But this is how I felt. There's no doubt. And as I said, you haven't probably had your kids kidnapped, but you understand major doo-doo. You understand this, and this is where I was. So one of the things I did by accident is I started practicing deep breathing, and this is how it happened. I'm sitting on my couch, and I'm just flipping through channels. The kids are gone, and I'm feeling really lousy, and it's a Sunday morning, and all of a sudden I stop because I hear this lady's voice, and it's so soothing, it's calming, and she talks about deep breathing, and she said, almost as if she were speaking just to me, if you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, your stress level will go down and your energy level will go up. Now, I like that, and I'm a type A personality kind of dude, so I got up off the couch, and I'm standing there, and I'm watching her, and I start going, and I'm breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth. And I thought, okay, 5 times, I got this. I'm going to go for 10. I got to about 7 or 8, and I got dizzy. I got woozy. Thankfully, the couch was there, and I sat down. So I did learn 5 times is really, really good. But the reason I'm sharing this is that I found out, and I still do this today, that deep breathing is essential, and it can be used anytime. When you're heading to work, if you're still going in, you're driving to or from work, deep breathing is great. When you're getting ready for that meeting that you may not want to have with that employee or with some staff, deep breathing is great. I was talking with my best friend, Bobby. He calls me Buddy, and I call him Buddy. I don't know why, that's just how it turned out. We're Bob and Scott, but it's Buddy and Buddy, and we're on the phone. He's going, okay, Buddy, what's up? Give me the latest update of what's going on with the kids and how you're going to get them back. And I'm telling him what's going on, and then I stop and I listen to him talk for a minute, and in the middle of him talking, he just stops. He goes, Buddy, what are you doing? I said, nothing. He goes, what's that sound? I said, oh, I'm just practicing deep breathing. I'm nervous. I have to chill out. He goes, don't do that. It's really creepy. So when you're on the phone, you don't want to do deep breathing. But almost anywhere else, it does work. I could tell that I was going through some major things, and I thought about just curling up into a ball, tossing in the towel, and moving on with my life. It had been 2 months since I spoke to my kids or I got to hold them and be with them, but it felt like a year. The thing is, every action plan that I wrote down, every scenario I played back in my head had me reuniting with my kids. Nuts, but that's the way it worked. The next thing that happened by accident, but it was difficult that I did as this story continues to lower my stress is, okay, I did deep breathing, and then I did what was really difficult. I started opening up to others. I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I'm like, how could I let this happen? Why didn't I see it coming? But I didn't. So I had this wall that I needed to lower and let people in. This invisible, impenetrable wall. I needed to lower that shield and begin opening up to others. How about you? Do you have that invisible wall that you need to lower a little bit more and allow people to come into your lives and help you out? It can be very, very rewarding. What I ended up doing is I would speak to friends, family, coworkers, and acquaintances to see if anybody had just a nugget of information that would help move me forward, even if it was just an inch at a time. And opening up to others on top of deep breathing showed me a lot of things that were incredibly powerful and did move me forward. One of the things is that we are hardwired as human beings to help. If someone asks us for help, unless we sense danger, we're usually going to help out. That's the way we are. So that was great. And then I'm speaking to all these women and men, and they're giving me fresh perspectives of my situation that I hadn't thought of. Could you use more perspectives in things you're working on? And they would give me ideas and energy that I needed so much. So opening up to others is great. I also learned some lessons about opening up to others. One is that when you open up to people and you ask for help, there are going to be some people, and you know who they are, or you may not, that are going to want to share with you everything that they know. All the worldly knowledge that they've accumulated throughout their lifetime, they're going to want to bestow upon you. But in the end, it's good that they're helping. You can keep what you want and toss out the rest. And the other ones I learned about, they're the negative ones. They're the ones that are going to tell you, you can't do this. Oh, that's a bad idea. I wouldn't go for that promotion. I wouldn't change my life. I wouldn't do that with my job. I wouldn't change my personal life. You're probably going to want to spend less time with them and more time with the people that have got your back, especially when you're going through some big things. And you'll know who they are right away. They'll just tell you all the reasons why what you're trying to do is wrong. Don't necessarily need that. As I was talking to people and listening to them, I began doing something that was just strange to me, but I would hold between my thumb and index finger the real possibility of reuniting with my kids. I don't know why I did it, but this mind-body connection is really powerful. So as I was listening to folks, I'd hold on to what they were saying, and I'd listen, and I'd keep in my mind a picture of my kids, realizing that they're right here and I'm going to get them home. And it's a really powerful connection to do. So, if you would, put your thumb and index finger together for a moment. Nice and tight. Feel pressure in your hand that builds up. It's the pressure that you feel when there's something you have to accomplish. What is it that you want to focus on? Go ahead, you can release them. What is it you want to focus on? It could be your health, your self-esteem, your job, your spouse, your significant other, your kids. Whatever it is, if you're willing to keep that which is most precious to you right here, you'll continue moving forward towards that which matters to you the most. I don't know why it works, but it does. After I was talking to people, I also got together with my friend Coco. Coco wanted to help me out, and we're really close, her and her husband Howard, and he was working, and it was a Saturday, so we got together for brunch because Coco really wanted to know what was happening and how she could help, and we've been friends for decades. So I want to first describe Coco, because I think we all know a Coco in our lives, and then I'll tell you what happened. So Coco she's about 4'8". She is tiny, but she has one of those 6'8" personalities, right? We know them, we have them in our life. And she's Italian and Jewish. It's a heck of a combination. And when Coco's around, you know she's around. So we're having brunch, and she goes, okay, Scotty, come on, what's going on? Where are the kids? And I said, well, Coco, I'm not exactly sure yet. I'm working on it, and I'm trying to get more information, and Lisa hasn't let me contact her yet. And in the middle of my sentence, she takes her hands and fists and pounds them on the table. Coco was mad. And the silverware jumped up. I knew that she was about to go Coco on me, and I've seen this before, but I've never seen it in my direction. I've seen it in others, and I've just sat there while she was doing it, and I'm like, oh, look what you started. It's not going to be good. And she goes, okay, Scotty, listen, I can't take it anymore. And I'm listening to her, but at the same time, I'm looking around, I'm going, people have to think we're having a lover's quarrel or somebody broke up, I don't know. All these things are going through my head. She goes, listen, I can't take this anymore. This has been going on too long. Here's what I want you to do. And I'm like, yeah, oh my gosh, she's got a good idea. I want you to find some mercenaries and hire them. And then I want you to get a jet plane and get that plane and go over to Israel and get your kids and get them on that plane and bring them home. Do you understand? And I was like, yeah, Coco, I hear you. That's really good. And I did. Look, I appreciated her passion and sage advice because I needed energy. I was running on empty all the time, so it did help. Listening and having her say that to me. And we finished brunch, and I paid. Then we went outside, and I gave her a big hug, and I went back home and started to think about my conversation with Coco that night. But as I was doing that, I realized that 90 days had already passed. It was a long time now since I've seen my kids, and I spoke to local, state, and federal officials and people around the globe, and none of them could help me. And attorneys that I spoke to all over the world soberly reminded me that because Israel hadn't signed this important document called the Hague Convention on International Aspects of Child Abduction, Lisa was under no obligation to return our kids home, ever. And ever is a really long time. A really long time. So I'm shaving one day, and I'm minding my own business, and I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And I thought about Coco a little, and I'm like, if I try to do what she suggested and I get caught, a lifetime in a Middle Eastern jail would really, really stink. Or I could get killed or injured. How's that going to help get the kids home? So I remember it was a Tuesday morning, and I'm shaving, and I had a picture in the upper left-hand corner of my kids that I had taken just weeks before they were kidjacked. And I had to come up with a different word than kidnapped because I couldn't say those words. When I did, I cried. I got weak. I couldn't think straight, so I came up with kidjacked. It just seemed more mellow to me. It was the same thing, but a different word. And I'm shaving, and my eyes are darting back and forth between the picture and my face in the mirror. And that's when it hit me. I had been plotting and planning and role-playing with people for months on ways to go around Lisa to get our kids back, but I was doing it the wrong way. I needed to go through her, not around her. And as this happens, and I have this realization, I finish shaving, I clean up my face and dry off, and I start doing this crazy dance of joy in the bathroom that would have gotten me kicked off of any reality dance show, but it didn't matter. I was moving forward, and I felt great because I was actually thinking about something that could work. I went downstairs, and I had breakfast, and at the time I was working for a big Berkshire Hathaway company leading sales teams, and I had some calls to make with one of my team members, and so I ate breakfast because I was still working at the time, and most of my head was in it, but a lot of it wasn't. But I knew we were going to probably need more money because I knew some things were going to go down at some point. So I get into my car and turn it on, and I start driving, and that's when something else happened to me when it comes to reducing stress, and I want to share that with you. We've talked about these ways, and there's also the power of music. Now, our taste in tunes may be different, and I understand that, but the end result is still the same. I got into the car, and I know who I like, all right? I like Aretha Franklin and anything Motown. I like the Beatles, the Stones, Bob Marley, Steely Dan. There's certain groups, when I hear their music, it makes me feel great. So a Beatles song comes on, Love Me Do, and I'm listening to it, and I'm bopping to Love, Love Me Do, and I'm thinking, what is going on? Your world's crumbling around you, and you're bopping out in the car. And then I was like, oh, this is good, I want more. Rolling Stones song comes on, Waiting on a Friend. It reminded me of Bobby, the guy who calls me Buddy, who said I was creepy, deep breathing on the phone. And he was right. So this is happening, and I wanted to get more, and I wanted to find out why it's happening, and I did some work, and I looked into it, and I figured it out. And I will share it with you in a few minutes. But before I do, if you would be kind enough, everybody stand up. Give us a moment to stretch. What I'd like you to do, as I mentioned, our taste and tunes are different. I get that. But I'd like you to talk to people at your table and roam around a little bit. Just don't leave the room. And talk to people and share who you like, who the artists, the music, the groups and bands are that you like that make you feel excellent when you hear them. Go ahead and talk. Who do you like? Who do you like?
I'm enjoying being at this table all by myself.
Are you? Would you like me to leave?
No, you can stay.
Who do you like to listen to?
I don't listen to a lot of music.
No?
Country usually, if I do.
If you're going to, it's country. And when you listen, you feel good.
I'm sorry?
When you listen to it, you feel good. Sometimes. Depends on who.
No.
Is there like an artist that you're like, wow? I'm old country. I like older country.
I'm sorry.
I like older country.
I do too, but I do like Luke Bryant.
Coco, who I was telling you about,
Yes.
loves Luke Bryant. She's a big country fan.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. Of course. My pleasure. Nice. Okay. So, I imagine that there's some sharing that's been going on, which is really cool. Have a seat. Relax. I'm doing the work. You get to sit and chill out. I just wanted you to stretch your legs and share a little bit. Look, before I move on, I wanted to remind you that all of us can use this in our life, right? Deep breathing, opening up to others, remembering what's important, and music. And I promised that I would share with you why it works, but before I do that, if you would be kind enough just to yell out, and if the people that are watching us remotely types an answer in too, let me know if you want. What groups do you like to listen to? Who makes you feel great? Just yell it out. Who?
Tina Marie.
Tina Marie, yes. Who else? Jackson Brown? Cardi B. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, but she's so mellow. Yeah, she's good. Who else? Come on. Who? Michael Jackson. Prince? Fleetwood Mac. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Anyone else? Mamas and the Papas. And who did you say? The Doobie Brothers. The Lion King soundtrack on virtual. Hakuna Matata. And all that stuff. Okay. Last chance. Anyone else? Who? Maverick City. Maverick City. You know, I got to tell you, I'm a little surprised, and thank you for all the answers. This is great, but whenever I do this exercise, I always hear AC/DC. So where's AC/DC fans? Yeah, but you didn't say it. I didn't hear it. And here's the other one I always hear and I didn't hear. Journey. Where's my Journey fans? And you can always tell a Rush fan because they're like, Rush! I'm like, okay, wow. Thank you for indulging me in that exercise. But there's a reason for it. Because of this. What does music do for us? I'm reminding you by telling you these ways to reduce stress, but I'm telling you because I literally used each one of these things to figure out how to get my kids back. So we understand what music does, but why does it do it? It's dopamine. That feel-good neurochemical with the funny name gets released into the pleasure senses of our brain, making us feel euphoric. The music that you love is dopamine. The foods that you love is dopamine. The show that you watch on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, and you're watching it and you're like, I'd give it 10 stars if I could, dopamine. So the next time you're stressed out, being in HR kind of gets to you a little bit, even though it never would, because you don't have to deal with people with complaints or anything like that. But if that happens, so listen, put on your headset, put on your Beats, put on your earbuds, crank up the music at home or in your car, and allow yourself to get lost in your tunes. You know what to listen to, and here's some of the things that it can do. And it really works. It's a reminder for us who are so busy to also focus on ourselves. As was mentioned earlier up here, we have to focus on ourselves and our health too. 4 months had passed since Lisa began not speaking to me and taking the kids. It's a long time. But finally, after 4 months, I was able to connect with her. And we started talking. Did she get the flowers I sent her? The cards I sent her? The exploding piñata? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I didn't send any flowers. Anyway, she said with me, Scott, I'm not mad at you. You've done nothing wrong. It's just that we're going to stay here, and the kids need their mother, but a father isn't really as necessary. I explained to her that our kids did need a father to read to them, to play with them, to tuck them in at night. When I finally had a chance to speak to Jonathan, I got him on the phone. He's like, Daddy, I love you. I'm like, oh, sweetheart, I miss you. I almost started bawling. It was one of the million times I almost lost it. I go, sweetheart, I love you too. He goes, Mommy said we're not coming home. I said, oh, don't worry. Everything's going to be okay, sweetheart. Tell Allie I love her too. Okay, Daddy. And he gave the phone back to Lisa. And I said, look, you can't do this. This is wrong. The kids need to be with us. Please come back and let's discuss it. Now, Scott, my mind's made up. You just need to figure out what you're going to do with your life and move forward. Well, I figured out what I was going to do at that moment. I did what anyone would do, right? I hung up the phone. And then I walked outside, and I'm walking on my sidewalk, and I'm yelling, and I'm screaming, and I'm crying, and I probably looked like Rain Man. I'm just, all the stuff's coming out, and I'm trying to gather myself. I'm like, okay, focus on your breath. And I'm focusing on my breath a little bit, and I'm finally getting a little bit of composure back. And I thought, okay, so what do you know? Just focus on what you know. Okay, well, the kids, you love them. I'll do anything under the sun to be with them, and I'll do whatever it takes to get them home. Oh my gosh. It had never dawned on me until that moment. I couldn't trust Lisa anymore. Our marriage was over. That was painful. The next thing I did proved to be incredibly powerful. I hired an attorney. Julie. I had spoken to a bunch of attorneys. I had interviewed a couple, actually about a half a dozen. And Julie won out because she had the 3 things she had to have if she was going to represent me and my kids. 1, she was somebody who practiced family law and had experience. Good. 2, she had a reputation in the law arena in our area as being a pit bull of an attorney. I wanted that. Thirdly, she was passionate about our case, my case. Julie and I worked together for many weeks, and we had many meetings, and then one day after about 8 or 9 meetings, we're sitting in the conference room of the law firm that she works at, and I had brought in lunch, and I'm like, okay, Julie, so here's the deal. Lisa's begun speaking to me even more, and she's told me where she is, and she's given me permission to come see her and the kids. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fly over there, and I'm going to figure out somehow to get the kids back, and then I'm going to bring them back home. And I'm really proud at that moment. And I take a bite of my sandwich, and I'm eating some chips, and they're flying all over. Now, we've dealt with attorneys, right? We know attorneys are good. You need attorneys, and they have those legal pads. And she starts writing things down. I'm like, what are you writing? Let's talk. She goes, just a couple of notes. And I'm like, okay. And she stops writing. She puts her pen down, takes a sip of her Diet Coke, puts that down, and she just looks at me right in the eyes, and she goes, Scott, I think you're nuts. And I just looked at her, and I'm like, well, what do you mean? She goes, this has bad written all over it, okay? Trust me, I have experience. You cannot go to the Middle East and try to get your kids back. You could get injured or worse. I can't protect you when you're over there. Let's come up with a different plan. Let's work on some more things, and then we'll try to get your kids back. But I had heard that before. I'd heard that for months. I said, Julie, look, I have this small window of opportunity to go in and get my kids. I'm going to fly over there and bring them back. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. And I want you to have divorce papers ready to serve Lisa 2 days after I get back if I'm able to make this happen, because I'm going to have jet lag. I'm going to go there. I'm going to go back, and I can't stay married. And she tried to convince me of other options. Look, let me talk to some more lawyers. I'm like, who have you not spoken to? I don't know, but let me talk to some more. Well, is there somebody else you can think of? Not at this moment. I said, okay, we're good. We're done. Let's move forward with my plan because everything else has gotten me to this point. Okay, cool. So I signed some more papers saying that I was a dummy and I shouldn't be doing this and some other things that we would need later legally. And we finished lunch. She walked me out to the outer edges of the law firm. She gave me an uncharacteristic hug. Then she said, I want you to call me as soon as you land in Israel, and I want you to call me as soon as you get home with your kids. Boy, that really made me feel good. Now, at the time, I was working at a big Berkshire Hathaway company. I was in sales and management. I was leading sales teams and wonderful people. But I also had a dilemma. I was going to go to the Mideast. I didn't know how long this was going to take, and I didn't know what the outcome would be. So I know what I needed to do. And I mentioned just a tiny bit before, when I began, that HR is family to me. And the reason is not only have I presented at so many conferences of HR, but when I needed HR, when I needed you were there for me. You know, you don't always hear the things that you do for people, and people don't hear what you do. But people knew about HR at my company when I was done and what they did for me, because what HR did is they made sure that I could go without worrying about my job. They made sure that other managers would take care of my team while I was gone. They made sure that when I came back that I'd have enough time to regroup. They completely had my back 100%. They didn't have to, but they did. These were extraordinary circumstances. HR was there for me, and I had talked to HR a bunch of times about some things and guidance that I needed with an employer, what we can do or what we can't, but this was different for all of us. But I never forgot that. HR doesn't always hear it, but you play a big role in people's lives, and in my life, it was Hugh Giant. 5 months to the day, Lisa kidjacked our kids. I boarded an LL Airlines jet for a 13-hour nonstop flight from Chicago O'Hare International Airport to Ben Gurion International Airport in Tel Aviv, Israel. It is a long flight. I had taken it before several times, but this time was different. I hadn't slept. I was nervous. I didn't know what awaited me when I got over there, but I knew Lisa had said, come visit and everything will be good. She's got 6 other brothers and sisters. 2 of her brothers are police officers, and we all loved each other and things were close, but I didn't know what she had said over the months, and I didn't know what awaited me. So we're on the plane, we eat, and then they turn down the lights, and we're flying somewhere over the Atlantic, and everybody starts to fall asleep, except me and some other people. There's a gentleman directly in front of me on the aisle, and this gentleman was old, okay? Old meaning like probably in his 90s old. So as soon as the lights went down, he went to sleep like a little baby and he snored. So there I am on the plane, and he's keeping rows 15 through 18 awake the entire flight, and we're elbowing him, we're pushing his seat, and he would turn a little bit, but he continued to sleep. I did not. Thankfully, 13 hours later, we did land. And when we did, we made it to the gate, and we were about to get off the plane. I will continue, but as I promised you, the slides are available if you'd like to text 66866 in the next 10 or 15 minutes. Slides are available, plus you'll be able to get a copy of Kidjack, A Father's Story, which has a lot more information than just this. So, we land in Tel Aviv, and we pull up to the gate, and we start to get off the airplane, which is great. And as we get off, I'm walking past the soldiers with their machine guns at the ready. It's when you know you're not home anymore. And I went through passport control, nothing to declare, and I went outside, and it was a bright, warm day, and there was a fence about maybe 30 feet away, about 4 feet high, and behind that fence were hundreds and hundreds of people waiting for family, friends, and loved ones coming in on flights from all over the world. And I'm looking for Jonathan and Allie, and I'm rolling my bag, and I'm like, she didn't show. She's not even here. And then all of a sudden, Jonathan serpentines his way through people, and he comes and he runs into my arm. Oh, sweetheart, I missed you so much. Daddy, I love you, Daddy, but Mommy said we're still not going home. Oh, don't worry, everything will be okay, sweetheart. And then I looked up. I don't know how she did it, but little Allie with her red curls bouncing in the breeze was there. Oh, I picked her up. I gave her about 1,000 kisses. And I said, I love you. And she said, I love you, Daddy. And then we walked out, and Jonathan took my suitcase, and we walked outside, and there was Lisa. And I put Allie down, and she was hanging on to my leg, and I gave her a big, big hug and kiss, and I said, I missed you. And she said, I missed you too. I had a role to play. I was there for a particular reason. It was not to visit. It was to see my kids and bring them home. We went to pick up the car I had rented and drove to her family's house in Tiberias, and there we were met by her 6 brothers and sisters, her mother and dad, assorted aunts, uncles, and cousins that had to be there that day. It was overwhelming. I was tired. I was nervous. But you should have seen the amount of food they made. Oh my gosh. It was great. It was like enough to feed an entire block. So I'm eating and I'm hanging out with the kids. And then about almost 30 hours of non-sleeping got to me. And I asked for a room. They showed me a room that was nice and air conditioned. I went in there and I slept for 12 hours. Woke up the next morning, and you know how that happens when you're not exactly sure where you are, if you're in a hotel or whatever? I didn't know it for a second, and I'm thinking about it, and then I'm like, oh boy, okay, look what you've done. So I take my feet and I put them on the floor, and I'm sitting on the bed, and I'm like, okay, you've got this, you can do this. And I walked outside, I opened up the door, walked outside, and in the living room, kids were sitting on the floor, eating breakfast, watching Sesame Street in Hebrew, Rehov Sum it's called, and they're having a blast with their cousins, and I go and I give them a hug, and they're like, Daddy, and we hug each other, and they're fine, like nothing had ever happened, like we hadn't been away for 5 months. Kids are very resilient. And I said hello to some other people, and I went and I showered and cleaned up, and then I just needed to regroup, so I went outside and I had some tea. A delicious cup of tea. And when I went outside, I'm thinking to myself, boy, oh boy, it's like 9:30 or 10 in the morning. It's already hot. It's in the 90s. The sun's shining. I'm sitting at a table. Thankfully, there's an umbrella. And I'm just relaxing, minding my own business. And who should walk out to sit with me but Lisa's father, Joseph, the alpha male of the family. Joseph at that time was in his early 60s. His shirt was off, maybe because it was hot, and he was built like a bear. It was easy to tell he was once a man of great strength and power. And I'm sitting there and I go, hi, Joseph. And I decided at that moment, management decision, I did not want to intimidate him by taking off my shirt. So we're just sitting there and we're chatting. And he had brought out watermelon, which was cold and delicious. So we're eating it, spitting out the seeds. And he cuts right to the chase. Scott, Lisa tells me that you want to go home with her and the kids to sell your house and move here to Israel. Is that correct? Yes, Joseph, I'd like to go home with Lisa and the kids, sell our house, get all the paperwork done, and they can spend time with family and friends, and then we'll all come back together. Scott, I'll tell you what. I will miss Jonathan and Alexandra too much if you take them, so you leave them here. And you and Lisa go, take your time, we will watch the kids, and when you come back, everybody will be safe. So I never thought of that one. All the role-playing and planning I had done with people for months, that one never came up. Nobody had that thought. But I can tell you how I felt at that moment. Hot sun, listening to Joseph, most of the air is leaving my lungs, and I just look at him, and I had that feeling like, we've had it. You're driving in your car, you're minding your own business, and you look in the rearview mirror, and those red and blue lights are flashing, and you're getting pulled over, Well, you know, that feeling where your heart goes right from about here down to your ankles? That feeling, with the loss of air in my lungs, made me feel like I was just going to collapse, but I kept it together. I gave Joseph a half-hearted smile, and then it kind of dawned on me. It just clicked where I was. I was in the Middle East. This was man-to-man, and I had one hand left I could play. And I did it. I said, Joseph, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind offer, but it can take 2, 3, 4 months for us to sell the house, get the paperwork approved and everything, and then ship things over here. That's just too long for the kids to be away from their mother and father. I'd like to bring them with us, let them spend time with their family, then we'll all come back together. Seemed like a reasonable request to me. Joseph stared at me. Now, people in the Middle East do have a penetrating stare. It's different than in the West. When they look at you, they don't look away. And it's like he was reading my mind and studying me, and it felt like 20 or 30 seconds. It was probably like 5 or 7. And I'm freaking out every second of that because I knew whatever he said next was going to decide a lot. Scott, if you want to go home with Lisa and the kids to sell your house and move to Israel, I will give permission for that to happen. I couldn't believe it. Inside, I'm thinking to myself, this is great. And at the same time, inside myself, I'm going, I need to get permission to bring my kids home? But as they say over there, oi. So I thanked Joseph. We did a big hug and a kiss. That night, I was in downtown Tiberias, and I'm wining and dining Lisa. The kids are back up at the house, sleeping. Scott, did you mean what you said to my dad? Would you really move here? I just used a line that she had used several years ago, rephrased a little bit, and delivered it back in her lap. Lisa, I sure did. It doesn't matter where we are, as long as we're together, that's all that matters. I thought that might resonate with her, because those were her words once upon a time. She looked at me, and she stared, and then she picked up her red wine, and she took a sip, and I knew the jury was out. And she put her glass down, and she said, okay, Scott, let's do it. Let's go home, let's take the kids, let's sell the house, and then we'll all move back here together. Okay. At that moment, when she said that, I almost lost it and started crying like a little baby. I was exhausted. I was mentally weak, physically exhausted, and emotionally, I was toast. But we weren't quite home yet. 3 days later, in the car that I had rented, with the kids in the back seat, and Lisa and Jonathan, Lisa and I in the front, and the kids in the back seat, we drove to the airport in Tel Aviv, Ben Gurion. Following us in 2 separate cars was Lisa's entire family. We descended upon the airport, we returned the rental car, and then we checked in. And the 4 of us were all checked in. And then because it's an international flight, you get to sit for a while and hang out because you're not going anywhere. And so I'm sitting for 2 hours with her entire family. They're speaking Hebrew, of which I understand a little bit, but I do understand. We understand body language. And the body language is good, some concern I can tell, some other stuff, voices all over the place, raised, not raised. And I'm just looking at my watch going, come on. Come on. And finally, after we ate bagels and fruit and juice and coffee and tea and Danish, finally, a couple hours later, they started to make the announcement that our flight was going to board. And I said, Lisa, it's time for us to say goodbye until next time, and we got to get on the plane. And that's what I told her. And she looked at me, she said, okay. And we said our goodbyes and kissed everybody. A lot of double kisses going on. And the only way I could get my kids home, unless you were a fan of Coco's idea and the Mercenaries, remember that? With our kids in tow and Lisa there, we walked onto an LL Airlines jet that was going to head nonstop to Chicago. We took our seats. And took about an hour, the plane's all loaded up, and finally the doors are closed and we back away from the gate. And then we start to move forward. And I'm like, this is really cool. This is good. And as we're moving forward, the plane slows down. And then it stops. And I'm thinking, that's weird. And I could tell the engines were running. They lowered them, but the air was circulating on the plane. And I look out the window after about 5 minutes, and in the distance, I see red and blue lights on police and army vehicles heading in the general direction of our plane. And that's when I realized that the gig was up. Somebody, two of her brothers being police officers, Danny and Shimon, one of them figured out, or somebody, what I was going to do, and these big armed dudes are going to come on the plane, and they're going to whisk me off and take me to a small dark room for questioning. Remember I told you earlier that I had this active imagination and I'm trying to come up with ways to get the kids home. So this is what's going on in my mind, and I'm freaking out, and I start looking around for exit doors, and there's exits 7 rows back, and I'm thinking, okay, here's what you do. Just stay calm. They're not here yet. Just go to an exit door, open it up, and jump. It's pretty far, big plane. And then do one of those rolls like they do in the movie, and land it, and stick it, and you're going to be fine. And then you start running. Where? It's the tarmac. This is Israel. They're not prepared for that kind of crap. Come on. So that wasn't a good plan, and I didn't do it. That's why I'm here. 10 minutes pass, and I'm literally sweating now. I can feel it, and I'm doing this. 15 minutes pass, and then 20 minutes pass, and the pilot gets on and said, we've been approved for takeoff. I don't know what those lights were doing in the Army and police vehicles, but apparently they weren't heading towards us. And the engines go up, and we start to go parallel to our runway, and then they take a left turn, and then they get on the runway, and they hit the engines. And we end up going up into the air. And we go over the Mediterranean, and then we turn and we begin to head west towards Europe, west towards home. And about 15 minutes into the flight, I am literally pinching myself because I know that this is a dream. There's no way this is going to happen. I'm thinking, am I about to accomplish what most people, including myself, thought could never be done? And I wanted to slap myself, but that would look too weird, right? So I'm pinching, and it worked because it hurt. And, if you've ever been out of the country, and many of us have before, there's nothing like traveling, but there's also nothing like coming home. The food you love, your own bed and pillow, maybe a pet and people you love. So I couldn't wait to get back home. This time was just different. I couldn't wait, and it was reality. We were actually flying. So once I realized that, I just hunkered down, and they fed us, and then everybody on the plane, except little old me again, seemed to be falling asleep. And I just had a magazine, and I'm looking at pictures. I couldn't even read. My mind was fried. I had no more wavelength to do much of anything. And so many, many hours later, they turned on the lights. People started to move around, and they gave us some cloths to wipe off our faces, and warm cloth, and we wiped off the kids. And everybody woke up, and they served us breakfast. And we ate. And it was good, and the kids were still there. Every second I'm looking at them to see if somehow, and they were there. And then I'm playing with Allie, and she's sitting on my lap, and she's got this purple teddy bear, and she's boxing me with it. And I'm tickling Jonathan, and he's playing with a puzzle, and we're having fun. And then the pilot gets on, and he said, we're making our initial descent into Chicago. I'm like, oh my gosh. I couldn't believe it. So we put the kids back in their seats, we buckle them up, and then a little while later, our plane lands in Chicago. But it was one of those landings I will never forget. It was just one of those things where the plane had been flying for so long, I don't know how it didn't just go plunk, but it landed, and it was such a smooth, gentle landing, you almost couldn't feel it. I was like, this is really nice. We go to the end of the runway, and then we're going to take a right, and that same window that I looked out many hours earlier, that I saw those vehicles with their lights on, that same window I looked out, and off the airport, there was a building with a flag on it, an American flag, just kind of waving. And that's when I realized that for the first time in over 5 months, I could release my fingers. I was home. We were home. And we pulled up to our gate, and we got off the plane, and we go through passport control and then customs, and they're like, "You have anything to declare?" And I'm like, what I wanted to say is, "Anything to declare? You wouldn't believe what I just pulled off. I've got these 2 precious little kidlets and middies, and I couldn't figure it out, and I almost and no, we're good, nothing, everything's fine." And they're like, "Okay, go ahead." And we went to pick up our minivan that I had left there, and we drove home to our house. And Lisa was served with divorce papers 2 days later. By the way, if you want to connect on LinkedIn, that'll also be on the sheet. So Albert Einstein said this, right? I don't think he meant it, but he might have. I'm not that smart. I just stay with problems longer. He is that smart. But sometimes, folks, we're going through some major things. So 2 days later, Lisa was served with divorce papers. She was not happy. Whatever the opposite of happy is, that's how she was. I was okay with that. Sorry, I wanted my kids home. Let's fight on a level playing field. And we had a punishing custody battle a month or 2 later, and I was awarded primary placement of Jonathan and Alexandra, which is really cool, and it made me feel really great. And I also realized that, sometimes in our lives, we're forced to go down a path, whether it's the last couple of years or other challenges we've had in our life. A path that we don't choose, it chooses us for us. And we have to go down that road in order to survive. What is it that you want to remember? What is it that you really, really want to focus on? Your kids, your health, your significant other, your spouse, your self-esteem, your job, whatever it is. If you're willing to keep that which is most precious to you right here, you will continue moving forward towards that which matters to you the most. Because you see, when we focus on these things and we're truly conscious of them, that's when we make better decisions in our professional and personal lives. So, I'm raising 2 little kids. I'm doing it solo. I'm doing a decent job of it, and it was great, except for a couple of moments in their teenage years. But several years later, I would meet Meg. And by the way, the kids have grown now. They've graduated high school, they've graduated college, and they both have jobs. So that part is really, really great. Meeting Meg turned out to be unbelievable. Great wife, great friend, unbelievable stepmother and mother to the kids. And Allie, by the way, remember I told you she was fearless when she was little and climbing up? Well, that is her right there. You see her name, Allie? That's the largest formation of all women doing a formation in the state of Wisconsin. And she has 190 skydive jumps in because she saw that I did it one time. And she's like, I want to try that. And she's done it 189 more times. She's still fearless. Unbelievable. So today, here's the family. And of course, no family is complete, right, without a golden doodle. So we have Eddie. What you do in HR, it takes a lot. I've learned. I have friends in HR. Jill brought me to a conference a couple of months ago. She had seen me speak, and she brought me to her job to do some things on generations and change. And she had seen me speak, and she said, I've never seen a speaker fly HR's flag like that. I said, but I have a reason. She goes, yeah, I learned. And it really comes back to you. What you've done for me is incredible, and I never forgot that. What you do for so many people, corporations, individuals, you don't get enough of a thank you. So I want to thank you personally. I want to thank Amazon Care. I want to thank this incredible conference for bringing me in and allowing me to lead off. And now I think you get a couple of moments to just relax, have some more coffee, the little shots of coffee, and I will be around for a little while to talk. Thank you for everything you do. Appreciate it.
One more time for Scott, everyone. Let him hear it. Great story. That was fascinating. All right, before we go and get coffee, are there any questions for Scott? If you have questions, you've got a couple of options. I can come around with this mic and come to you. There are a couple of mics stationed on either side of this room. So if you'd like to approach those mics and ask Scott any questions, by all means.
Open mic night.
Open mic night. This is your
Nice.
chance to shine. So are there any questions
Yeah,
for
go.
Scott?
You gotta go to the mic. Yeah, otherwise they
I
can't
can come
hear
around,
you.
yeah.
You think so? Here, wait. Okay.
My question is,
Yeah.
did your ex-wife go back to Israel?
She did. Yeah, after some things happened, she ended up heading back and leaving. Yeah. Unfortunately. I actually, which was really, really, really tough after what we had been through, I asked her not to go. I said, look, the kids do need their mother. The kids need you here. Let's co-parent and this and that. And she said, no, I'm done. I'm going back. I'm going to hang with my family. So she did. Yeah. Good question. Thank you.
Anyone else questions? I don't.
There's more, a lot more in the book. And this isn't a sales thing because every one of you can have it. Just text that number and you'll get the slides and you'll get a copy of the book, which is really great. If you're having trouble sleeping and you start reading this book, it'll knock you right out. It's like,
Got a question over here, Scott.
yes, sir.
Did running figure into this story? In the
Oh my
intro?
gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, running did. It's actually, I didn't realize it until about 5 years ago, but it's how I stayed sane in my life. I just happened to be a guy who needed running, who did not like running. And it really paid off. I was running all during this. Anytime there's something going on, the one thing I don't stop doing is running because it balances me. It lets me meditate and work on things. I always ran without music because I run on the road against traffic, so I need to know what's going on. So it gives me time to clear my mind, meditate, or just get rid of some doo-doo. I think there's a question way over here. So this is before your time, but if you want to do your Phil Donahue.
Oh yeah,
run
no,
over.
I'll get my steps in today. We're talking about running. This is my workout today. Where's the question? All right. Oh, she couldn't see the text number. Well, I wrote it down on the other piece of paper. What is it? It's 66866, correct?
66866, yes, sir. 66866. That is correct.
So text 66866 to Scott for a free book. Yes, question.
Scott, when your kids got older, did they ever make any effort to contact their mother?
I'm sorry, you'll have to read the book. But no, great question. Yes, they did, and they have contacted her. They've been over there a little bit. She's come over here a tiny bit. So they have stayed in touch. And now that they're grown, I got really, 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 really great advice from a lady named Irene who had been through divorce once, and then she remarried a wonderful guy, Constantine, and they've been together forever. She said to me when I was going through this before I got the kids, she said, whatever you do, don't badmouth the mother to the kids because they will grow up and remember that. So I didn't, and it was really, really hard at times because I was getting hit from all different angles, but I didn't do that, and that paid off. So the kids don't have memories of me being a real jerk about their mom. But they did stay in contact at times, and then as they grew, one would more than the other, and then the other one would, and it kind of shifted, but it was really on them then, because once they were 18 and 20 and grown, it was like, you guys do your thing. Whatever works for you, I'm staying out of it. I want you to develop that relationship or not on your terms. Great question.
Any other questions? Over here. See, once one person asks a question, the floodgates open.
Absolutely.
Good morning. Thank you for your story.
Good morning.
So, when you think back about it, were there any subtle signs from your wife that you perhaps ignored? Okay. And what were they?
Yeah. So her question was, were there any subtle signs? And yes, there were. But I realized that not being a trained psychologist, and we literally had to have psychological makeups done in 2 different countries, I'm not trained in that. I'm just a nice, empathetic dude who sells stuff and hangs out and manages teams. I wasn't, and I don't know how to get kids back. There was no books on that. And so I should have read it better, because as we were married and it only turned out being 4 years, she would talk about her family more and more, but she'd always said she wanted to be in the States. This is where she wanted to be, and this is where she wanted the family. But there were subtle little things she was saying, and then I noticed also that sometimes she would say things that I wasn't sure were true, but I kind of called them, little lies, not big ones, and I let that go. So yes, there were subtle signs, but I didn't connect the dots. So great question. There were signs. I didn't see them, or I didn't want to see them. Maybe is also a big part of that. Because I wanted to be together forever and all that stuff. Yes? One sec, Mike's coming. No, you go. I want everybody to hear you.
You mentioned no international law was precedent.
Yeah.
Now, is there something to protect out of your
Yes,
case?
so there are more and more countries. A lot of countries have signed on. I will tell you that once you download the book and look at it, there's more to this story than a 1-hour keynote will allow me to share. But Israel had signed the Hague Convention on international aspects of child abduction. Great country, great question. Many other countries did too. Even Japan at the time wasn't a signatory, and they are now, and many other Latin American countries and others. So it's really important. If you're marrying somebody and they're not from here, check that out. Not that anything will ever happen, but it's just good. It's just good to know. What could possibly go wrong? Yeah, thank you for that. Anyone else? Got time for one more if anyone wants it, and then we got to give you a break. All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
One more time for Scott. All right, we'll be breaking until 10:18. During the break, walk the room, visit some of the exhibitors around the outside of the room, ask questions, learn a little bit about them. If you are going to tweet about this conference, make sure you use the hashtag TransformHR. And go for the passport contest. Make sure you visit the virtual booths as well. So this is both hybrid, in person, and online. Like the booth, leave a comment, leave your contact information. You'll get a stamp, and once you've collected all the stamps, you will be entered into a drawing to win an Amazon gift card. So we'll see you back here at 10:18 sharp.